excited about this program because it's allowing us to be brave, but in a very, very focused and meaningful way.
We're very good at coming together and raising capital, but we haven't quite crossed that bridge.
Which is why this idea of the people we're doing together is so exciting to me.
Welcome to our first episode of Breaking Boundaries. In this series, we're going to challenge ourselves to talk about all the programs that we're doing that really color outside the lines, but don't dilute the impact that we're trying to have. Hi, Nozizwe.
Hi, Mpopi.
Thank you for joining me for what's officially our inaugural Breaking Boundaries session. I'm quite pleased with the name because whilst everything we do is in the SME development and capacity building space, I think every now and then we get a program that gives us permission to color outside the lines, so to speak. And today we'll be talking about that program. But I would like to start by allowing you to introduce yourself and Sanlam Foundation and the work that we do, and then it will lead us into kind of today's dialogue.
Great. So firstly, thank you so much for having me. I really, really do appreciate it. It's always lovely to have a chance to speak about the work that we do.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So the Sanlam Foundation has been in existence since 2011. We are registered as an NPO and also a trust, and we're also a PBO. And, Mpopi, sadly, as you know, for a long time, a lot of corporate foundations were set up as compliance vehicles, really, for corporates. That's the truth. Gladly, I'm happy to say that there is, a migration away from that.
Good.
And there's a realization that corporate foundations, yes, they can, be compliance vehicles for the corporates, and that's absolutely fine. And that is the case with the Sanlam Foundation. We're the biggest single contributor to the BBBE scorecard for 3 elements for the group, and that is enterprise supply development, that is consumer financial education, and also socioeconomic development.
Okay.
And we're happy to maintain the level 1 BBBE
nice.
Sort of status for the group.
Well done on that.
Thank you. But in addition to that, we feel that we can do impact and achieve meaningful, measurable impact.
Yes.
That is not an either-or game. We can actually achieve both.
Yes.
And that's very much what it is that we do. So like I mentioned, we work in those 3 pillars. But in addition to the 3, we also do staff volunteerism program. We have a very exciting, lovely, refreshed staff volunteerism program that we've just relaunched as the foundation, together with other parts of the business. And then finally, we also, Sanlam in 2018 really expanded on the rest of the continent, the rest of the African continent. So we have a mandate now to run programs on the rest of the continent as well, which is very exciting.
I love that.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh. And it will still be, I suppose, in the SME capacity building, consumer education, financial literacy, and obviously the socioeconomic development aspects.
And staff volunteerism. So very much what we do in South Africa, but just expanding it to the rest of the sister territories.
Oh, how exciting.
And because, I'm not sure if we're aware, but Sanlam is the biggest non-banking financial services industry on the continent. That is homegrown as an African company. So it's important for us to not just be active in South Africa, but elsewhere as well, and make our presence felt in meaningful ways in other parts of the continent as well.
And I always argue that development is development, right? We happen in South Africa to have the BBBE codes, which drive that.
Yes.
But development is development. And once you cross the border, we may call it different things, but it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, but let's bring it back home. So we were introduced to Sanlam Foundation through an opportunity to do some enterprise development work for you guys. And I dare say you allowed us to dream. And as I said, the name Breaking Boundaries for me was very fitting because I think at the core of it, what is the problem statement from a BBBE codes perspective? Of course, it's to get small black businesses opportunities with corporates, but I also think that there's an equally important component, which is this small business may never become a supplier, but the sustainability of that business is still important. And that gives us an opportunity to almost play a bigger role in the communities than it does in this direct relationship between corporates and the SME. And so with the blank canvas that you guys gave us, we said, look, we're not going to develop small businesses in the traditional sense, but there's something to be said, and I think particularly because you guys are in financial services, around how do we become the bridge that harnesses formalization of da-da-da-da-da. And in our case, we chose Stokvels. And our view is, the narrative around Stokvels, I think we all know it. It's age old. But there's still a challenge around getting Stokvels to formalize to the extent that they can access sophisticated financial products. And when we approached you guys with that idea, you were so receptive to it. So tell me a little bit more about why. I mean, I can speak to why I'm excited about it, but why would this be important to you guys in the context of your broader strategy?
Sure. So I arrived to the team, to the Sanlam Foundation in 2020, in the middle of COVID, the lockdown, to a wonderful, wonderful team, by the way. I have a really great team, and we're split between Johannesburg and Cape Town. And what the reality then was that we had a lot of legacy programs from the previous sort of iteration of the foundation. And those programs, like I say, were more compliance focused rather than being impact focused. So we had to let those run their course. And then excitingly, in 2021, we were able to run an expression of interest, or RFP. And that's where then we were able to put out a call for implementing partners like yourselves. And we were so excited to really have an opportunity to choose our own implementing partners. We were very particular and very careful in terms of our evaluation criteria for those implementing partners. And first and foremost amongst those was monitoring and evaluation and learning, because we feel very much that the L is just as important as the monitoring and evaluation. You need to have the guts to, once you've done the M&E, to be able to learn from it, and sometimes that means rewriting the script, and that takes lots of courage and lots of integrity, because you can still get the points and not get the impact.
Correct.
So we were very excited about the opportunity to basically reimagine, and the opportunity to really redo our programming at the foundation. I mean, we spend so much money. But why not make sure that money actually achieves the desired impact in communities where Sanlam operates, so we were very excited about the opportunity to experiment. We have wonderful trustees who believe in what we're doing. They believe in our strategy. They believe in the direction that we're taking. So we do have some of the more sort of traditional enterprise and supply development programs. We do have those that are ongoing. However, we did have more space now to dream big and to push boundaries. And to see what else we could do. So I too, like you, I was born in a township. I'm a Soweto girl, very proudly so. And I mean, we all know that. Stokvels. So it's not your parents, it's your grandparents or your uncles and your aunts who are members of Stokvels. Such a big part of how it is that we grew up, and it's still such a feature of life in many townships today even. So we thought that it was such a meaningful sort of intersection of enterprise development, but doing it in something that's so tangible. And let's be honest, nobody's cracked the Stokvel game yet. Corporates have tried various schemes, there have been various attempts, but it hasn't been cracked yet. So I think it's important to be brave. I think it's important to be, but intentional and very strategic in that bravery. Not, there's no point just being reckless. And I think I'm excited about this program because it's allowing us to be brave, but in a very, very focused and meaningful way in terms of taking an institution like Stokvels and then just taking them to the next level with people who are so committed and so active and have such a big part of their lives. But putting our hands together with them, and obviously with the Volley Growth Partners, and seeing what it is that we can do in terms of taking Stokvels further than they currently are.
I mean, for me, you start with like our grandparents and our parents. It's almost like a learned behavior that we've all adopted. But I find that as you go down the generations, first of all, the pockets of money that Stokvels are actually saving as a collective are increasing, and the channels that we're now exploring are becoming more diverse. And yet we've still not gotten right the formalization, right? And that's I think for us that's the big thing that we really want to crack, because what have we now learned? We've learned that we're very good at coming together and raising capital. But we haven't quite crossed that bridge on formalizing to the extent that we can access sophisticated financial products.
Yeah.
And that's almost the bridge that we want to build.
Absolutely.
Do you happen to be part of a Stokvel by any chance?
So interesting. Currently not. I have in the past, but currently not.
Nozizwe.
I know, right? I should be carrying on the tradition. I should relook that clearly. I didn't expect that question.
I put you on the spot there. Because, the reason I ask it is because I'm part of like 3 Stokvels, and I've been reassessing them, I have to tell you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I wonder what the difference is between the 3.
Yeah.
But also why we ourselves have still not formalized to the point where we're tapping into. And what I was thinking about actually is I do think though that because we've observed it from our parents and that's what it looked like, I don't think we've challenged ourselves enough to look at it differently.
Yeah.
So I find that even in my own mind, I now have to shift around why are our Stokvels still so informal and still operating on the peripheries of like very sophisticated financial products. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I wanted to hear about your experience.
Yes.
But hold on, but maybe we can talk about when you were in the past. Why do you think, and I'm assuming here, did you guys get to a point where you'd formalize to a point that you felt we're really killing this thing? Or was it like almost like the ones that we see a lot of where it's money being passed around hands, but we never really see like a solid return on it?
It was definitely the latter.
Yeah.
It was definitely the latter, which is why this idea, of the program we're doing together was so exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like something was sitting beneath our noses, and we hadn't really just taken the opportunity to run with it. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what it is that, with us, the approach of the Sanlam Foundation is that it's never a top-down approach with our beneficiaries. It's very much a collaborative effort. We respect like the wisdom and the experience and the just the knowledge that beneficiaries bring with them.
Yeah.
And we're very much looking forward to building and to constructing this new thing together.
Do you know what's been surprising for me?
Yes.
I mean, the campaign has been live for, let's call it 2 weeks. I'm guesstimating here. I cannot tell you the number of calls that I've gotten from friends, associates, etc. that are like, we've seen this thing, we're really keen to become a part of it. What are you guys trying to do with it? What benefit can we derive? And I'm like, oh my gosh, the audience that is keen on this thing is quite broad.
Yeah.
But I also thought it's important to address kind of some of those questions. So, I think for us, what we find is Stokvels are at risk, and I think it's probably because of the manner in which money is saved.
Yeah.
They're at risk of almost being seen as, one, not transparent, but also that lack of transparency almost fuels this skepticism around accountability.
Yes.
So those risks are very real for Stokvels, right? Because you really are just trusting like people that are around you without the checks and balances to kind of give you the comfort that you need. So we ideally want to put governance in place. And
100%.
It's almost like a swear word when you talk about Stokvels. Like, what do you mean governance? But we really want to put governance into place in order for us to help the members of the Stokvel almost transition of this mentality of we're just gathering money to we're actually running a business.
Absolutely.
Right? And the corporate governance that you would expect in any business, you really should expect
be given.
This is your money. For all intents and purposes, you're a shareholder.
And it's large amounts of money.
Correct. And yet we're not holding people, even if it's like somebody who's assumed a leadership role, we're not holding them accountable to that extent. So our intention is to put in place proper governance, and ideally also help with the selection of just the primary bank account that will give you that kind of access, even if that's not the investment vehicle, right? But there's certain bank accounts that you can now use that to access other financial products.
Yeah.
And we find that Stokvel accounts, because I don't know if there's any such thing, don't allow Stokvel members to be able to do that. And then, of course, the education around what types of investments should you be considering. So we don't want to make assumptions around where people want to put their money, but we definitely have formulated the view that part of what the problem statement is that people aren't aware of the options that are available to them
100%.
on where to put their money. Some, of course, have made the decision we're in property specifically, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think there are plenty that there's a missed opportunity on just realizing the return on your money, even if you're going to distribute it at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But where you put it for that 12 months could generate a better return than where it currently is at that time, that, for however period you guys have been saving it? Because typically, at best, it's in a transactional account. You're not going to get return on that thing.
It doesn't make sense. And there's so many more instruments, as you say. So although this is an enterprise development program, actually there's such a big element of financial literacy and financial education, and I don't mean that in a condescending way at all. It just is. There's some very supposedly sophisticated people, like you were saying that you and I have been part of Stokvels, but we weren't necessarily formalizing them. We weren't necessarily accessing sophisticated financial products to increase that money. So it really is just about just opening up our minds and opening up the minds of the beneficiaries in terms of there's a suite of products out there. And they need to be aware of what those are, what the returns are, and choose what it is that they want, depending. So you mentioned, education. So you mentioned property as one. Another one is that there might be parents who want to save for an education. They might want, they might decide that they want to send their children to a certain type of school, and they then go in for longer term sort of, periods, and they lock in their contributions for that period so that they get the yield that they need in order to be able to take their child to that type of school that they want to take the child to. There's such a multiplicity of different uses that they could use. Yeah. So we're very excited and very pleased and eager for them to have, like, while they are formalizing and monetizing and increasing the returns on their Stokvels, also just becoming so much more aware of the multiplicity of products out there that they can use to really make their money go further and to grow faster and in a more meaningful way.
For me, on that point of making the money go further, I feel like one of the big things that I hope we're going to achieve out of this is almost goal setting with a longer term horizon.
Indeed.
Because in absence of that, you find that the cycles with Stokvels tend to be give or take 12 months, right? Where we're literally circulating money for a period of normally not longer than 12 months. But I think it's also that shift that needs to happen where we say, 100%. We need to stop thinking about this thing as a Stokvel. The manner in which we aggregate the money will still mimic the principles of a Stokvel. But I think the goals that we set for ourselves, the vehicles that we choose, and even if it's a collective of us saying, we collectively want to send our kids to this kind of a school or any other longer term investment, I do think the shift is also going to come with the time horizon of the investments as well, or this moving from savings actually to investments.
Indeed, and I hope that people really take that. I mean, it's something small, but so big, like compound interest. If they were to lock in the money for longer periods, just imagine. And Mpopi, I really, one of these things, and we'll keep on experimenting, we'll keep on looking for new sort of avenues that are meaningful in terms of making an impact in the communities where Sanlam operates. But one of the things is that, there's so much unharnessed power amongst ourselves as Black people, that I think that if we just organize ourselves a lot better and really be very directed and very strategic about what it is that we want to do with this capital, and we do have a lot of capital amongst ourselves. We might not per head by capita have a lot of capital, but collectively we really do, and I don't think that we have gotten to a point where we have really engaged with that and really tried to use that our numbers strategically, and the way that we can. So I'm hoping that this is one of the sparks, and we need many, not just from Sanlam Foundation, but hopefully there'll be many sparks of people similarly thinking of similar ideas about how we can use our advantage, which is numbers, to achieve really meaningful impact and really shift us together collectively from where we are to where it is that we want to be, as a community. I think, it's so exciting, and just being more intentional, more thoughtful, more organized in how it is that we move our money and how it is that we grow our money and where it is that we direct that money to and what we make it, do. It really is, it's up to us.
Yeah, that excites me because for me, I fundamentally believe that information is power. And I think that we don't, generally as a people, I think we don't tell our stories enough. Because, when you talk about normalizing that behavior of like aggregating capital, there's so many cool stories around. They're more formalized now, but they really are Stokvels at their core, of groups that have come together and done that so incredibly successfully. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping that we will achieve with this is just demonstrating that, because people sit in their corners and do really amazing work, but we don't really tell our stories. There's one that comes to mind, and at the risk of punting them, but the People's Fund. I mean, what those guys have managed to do is just exceptional, right? And so I would love for them, for example, to have the platform just to share their stories so that other people can find themselves in that story and find a way of how they can have a version of that. Because it's not necessarily that that structure will suit everybody, and it's okay. But as you're saying, we want to kind of normalize the multiplicity of that kind of approach to it. So I really hope that we will start to make inroads in getting us to that point. I do think we've set ourselves very ambitious tasks.
We have.
But I think that if it doesn't scare you, don't wake up in the morning and start getting busy with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for now, our intention is to start in Gauteng, right? Because this is the first time that we're doing this, and we don't want to try and go too broad until we've kind of nailed the model. But I'm really keen to see what we're going to find and the impact that we're going to have with a very small group that we're going to start with. Incidentally, actually, after we went out with the recruitment, I saw that there's a Stokvels conference coming up.
Oh!
And I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly we were all talking about
serendipity.
The same thing, yes. So I'm quite excited to also see what we can leverage from that conference. And ideally then all bring our minds together to make this a success. But yeah, this is our first year. So I think let's pace ourselves.
Absolutely.
And see how far we can go. But I am very excited about almost the hybrid or the meeting of the minds between enterprise development and financial education.
Absolutely.
Because I do think that it lends itself to both. And I mean, Sanlam is the perfect partner for us to take that road with them.
Thank you. And we're so excited as well. We're excited for the beneficiaries, we're excited for ourselves, but also excited to work with you, Mpopi, and your team, just in terms of like-minded, service providers, implementing partners who you see the vision, who are brave and are willing to, experiment and to try new ways of, doing things better. And I mean, the idea is that over time we would grow the program. We'd learn from the M&E, like I said, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. We'd learn very much data-led. Again, in terms of making the data, inform our next steps. Which we would incidentally also hope, obviously, the beneficiaries of the Stokvels would do the same, and they would see which investment vehicles actually work for them and which don't, and what it is that they want to lock in for longer periods of time. And they would then also, from a far more informed place, decide where it is that they're taking their Stokvels and what it is that they want to do. And I really believe in the abilities of our people. I really, really believe in just inherent intelligence and inherent wanting to do good and to do a collective good. I mean, just a very touching story very quickly before we end, which is a very small thing, but a big thing, just in terms of like who we are, just as people and how it is. I think we need to amplify that and use it far more for our greater good. Is that towards the end of last year, sadly, one of my dadbawas passed away, and we had her funeral in White City in Jabavu, in Soweto. And it was so touching how she was quite involved in the community. And just one by one, the community members started bringing a 10 rand just for for vegetables, for just the things of like washing, dishes that need to be done. But the cumulative effects of those 10 rands from the entire community went such a long way, just monetarily, but also just in terms of just reminding us of who we are and just the generosity and how it is that we act together as a collective, for the greater good. And I think if we could do that, but just amplify and just scale it up in bigger ways, I think that we could be doing so many things. We could be building universities. We could be funding SMMEs as a collective. We could be, there's so many things that we could deploy that money to do. It's there. We have the patterns, we have the traditions, we have the practices, but let's now use those to benefit us, to a far greater extent than we have so far. So that's what my hope is.
Do you know what's so interesting about that statement for me? It's like, and I often avoid using this term because I think sometimes it's exploited, but Ubuntu, right? Like at our core, from a social angle, nobody has to tell us, right? It comes naturally.
What's done.
I think what we need to challenge ourselves to answer is, why do we struggle to make the switch when it starts to be economic in nature? So we easily come together and raise money for a funeral, and there are many other social examples. But take the same pattern and say, let's actually generate an income and grow the income. And the transition is not, and yet the Stokvel culture is almost the bridge. But now it's just getting it to the other side. So I think for me, that's a good problem statement to lead with, right? Where we say,
Indeed.
we already have the ability to aggregate. We do come together. We know that. And we do it naturally.
Absolutely.
What is the switch that needs to happen for us to formalize it and say we're doing it deliberately for economic gain?
Absolutely.
In a structured manner with long-term goals? And let's come back and, we're happy to be challenged to come back and see the extent to which we've done that. I've been involved in a project before where one of the things that we debunked was that the poor don't save.
No, nonsense.
No. But these are gross generalizations that kind of find their feet and gain momentum and become universal truths.
Yes.
And yet when we pierce at it, we quickly learn that, come on, that thing doesn't hold.
No, absolutely not.
And so I think let's challenge ourselves to find that truth here.
Absolutely. So just to answer your question, or to attempt to answer your question, because I think it might be many answers to why it is that we haven't really monetized and made it more of an economic enterprise as opposed to because Stokvels are very social, right? And it was just an opportunity for our elders to get together and socialize with each other. And now I think a big part of it is a lack of knowledge. There was just not an awareness, and also just discomfort with money in Mpopi. I think discomfort with money is such a big thing that we don't really talk about. And it's discomfort with money, whether we have small amounts of money or whether we have large amounts of money. I think that people just haven't been orientated to just wrap their minds around what it is that the possibilities are of this thing called money, or this thing called capital, and then having the knowledge to then make it multiply and to make it grow. I think a big part of it is that discomfort, and we have to work through that discomfort to make people very, very comfortable with money and make people masters of money, and to they must be the ones to determine what happens with money. Right now we are ruled by it, and I think that it's an opportunity for people to actually establish their power and to then deploy it in various ways that are meaningful, that bring back benefits in meaningful ways to themselves as individuals, but also as a community.
You just planted such a massive seed around. I'm not trying to work out. I wonder to what extent, just to your comment around the discomfort of money, where it's the glass ceiling of the possibilities is so low, which is why we then don't make that transition of the true possibilities, right? And perhaps part of what we actually need to try and achieve here is to map out the art of the possible. So not so much, it's both, right? Yes, we need to formalize you. Yes, you need to be using the right accounts. Yes, you need to have access.
So all the mundane knowledge and the architecture stuff. But then
also
beyond that.
Let's shift your mindset and get over the discomfort with money. And get over the limiting beliefs that you have around how far you can take this thing, and start to show you the art of the possible, and challenge your own relationship with money, right?
100%.
That's a
psychology,
big thing for me.
The psychology is a big part of it.
And
it goes back to our history. It goes back to just the wealth and income inequality gap in this country, and how it's still very race-based. It's still very gender-based. There's a definite gender tinge to who has money and who doesn't. Stats SA, their stats consistently confirm, the difference in income, not just on race, but on gender, like I say. So all of those things will become into it. And I think it is about us, like I said, harnessing it and working through those discomforts and coming out on the other side with, like I said, a sense of empowerment that actually I can make this thing do things for me and for my community. If I take the time to just wrap my mind around what the possibilities are, if I take the time to really inform myself of the instruments, of the tools, of the bevy of opportunities that are out there in terms of investing this money, So yeah, I think it's a big. I think sometimes we stand in our own way sometimes a little bit, and there's very valid reasons why we have done so. But I think we have an opportunity now to move beyond that space.
To change that. I mean, as a closing remark, here's what I'm seeing as the overlap, which I didn't think would reveal itself, but it makes sense now that I think about it. We often talk about the fact that when we do SME development programs, we need to start with the entrepreneur, because your relationship with money as an individual is going to spill into your relationship with money in the business. And so we're quite deliberate around assisting the entrepreneur to improve or to understand and improve their relationship with money at a personal level. And then we take that jockey then and we say, okay, those principles, you're now going to apply them in the business. Like, I'm now realizing that, at the end of the day, whether it's a small business or it's a Stokvel or any other organized group, we're dealing with individuals. In the same way, we look at our entrepreneurs and say, we need to start with you as a person and challenge your relationship with money, and then watch how that spills over into the business. I think there's something to be said here as well. So we can draw from that knowledge, because it's already what we're doing with our businesses. And now we're actually saying we need to apply similar principles then to how we're going to support and assist our Stokvels.
Indeed.
Wow.
We're really looking forward to this, and we're looking forward to the learnings. And we're looking forward to, in future, expanding what is working.
Yes.
So thank you, Mpopi, for this.
Thank you for your time today.
Yes.
I really love this chat. I mean, I feel like you've challenged me more than anything. Excuse me, which is a good thing. So we will take the insights from today and we will continuously improve this program. I mean, this is the pilot for me, but
Yes.
I cannot wait to see how far it will go. So thanks again for your time today.
Thank you, and thank you from the team who's been really, really amazing in terms of getting this up and running, and looking forward to it. Thank you, Mpopi.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for today's episodes of Breaking Boundaries. Nozizwe, that was a delightful discussion. It was a pleasure to really talk around all the ways we're challenging ourselves to look at things differently and problem solve. I'm excited about everything we're going to do and all the future episodes that we're going to be